I have a second channel, Cube Compium TDX. Hey everybody. So I decided to resurrect the Dell Inspiron 1525 laptop. This is a laptop I've had for many years. I got it back in late 2011. It was actually a trade-in on a desktop. A buyer on Craigslist was interested in a desktop after sales or refurbished desktop. And ironically, the desktop she purchased was older than this laptop, but it had better specs on it. Because this laptop, when I got it, it was probably one of the cheapest models you could order. The way it was spec'd. It had just 1 gigabyte of DDR2 memory. Had a Pentium dual-core CPU, which I guess would be a step up from a Celeron, of course. Only had an 80 gigabyte hard drive. Windows Vista Home Premium. So that is not a particularly good combination. So this thing, when I got it, it was just horribly slow. I mean, horribly slow. So I gave her $40 off the cost of the desktop for this thing, which at the time, it didn't look all worn out like it does now. It looked practically brand new back then. It was hardly ever used, probably because it was so slow. So yeah, I got this thing, and like one of the first few things I'd done to it was I swapped in a CPU out of a Dell Latitude D630. It's the Core 2 Duo T9300 2.5 GHz CPU. It was probably one of the highest models of CPU that this thing here could support. I also eventually upgraded the RAM to 4 gigabytes. And there for a while I ran a 500 gigabyte Seagate solid state hybrid drive, but that ultimately got replaced with a solid state drive later on, because at one point in this laptop's service life, I accidentally ran over it with my car. Believe it or not, yes. When I was leaving work one day, I had this in my laptop bag, and I set it down to the rear next to my vehicle. Got in my vehicle, forgot to grab this thing, and I already proceeded to back out of the parking space, and I realized I ran over something. I was like, "Oh crap! There's no speed hump here." I got out, and there it laid. So I immediately pulled this out of the laptop bag and started it, and it actually started up. Now the screen was busted. Now just the LCD was busted. The lid was perfectly fine. The hard drive was actually destroyed. That hybrid drive, it was destroyed. It actually warped it. But the laptop overall, the keyboard, the rest of the laptop was fine. I mean, I hit it in this spot right here. If I'd hit it in a different spot, it would have been a whole different story. So this laptop has seen lots of use from me over the years. It was the laptop that I used throughout college, and also used as my laptop on the side anytime I went to work or things like that. I always had a laptop with me. I used this thing when I was working at Staples there for a while because the computer they had there was absolutely terrible. I mean, this thing, it just got so much use over the years, and it's held up very well. The only thing I really had to do to it, aside from when I got ran over, was I had to get in here and actually tighten up the screws that hold this lid assembly together because they had backed out over time. So, parts-wise, aside from the upgrades, the only thing I ever had to replace was the hard drive due to the damage and the LCD display due to the damage from getting ran over. So when I got this thing in late 2011, aside from those upgrades, I also replaced the factory battery because it was not doing well at all. You might get 30 minutes out of it. I replaced it with a 9-cell aftermarket replacement battery, and that battery is still working just fine after all these years. It charged right up. Matter of fact, I'll go and disconnect the charger. Let it run on battery power for a moment. Give it a second to estimate the time. Now the battery doesn't hold as much of a charge as it did when it was brand new, but for being a let's see, a close to 9-year-old battery, definitely not bad. One of the things that amazed me about this laptop, one of the reasons why I still hang on to it, is the fact that even though it's going on 12 years old, or it is about 12 years old now, is the fact that the overall performance for such an old laptop is just pretty dang amazing. I mean, the solid state drive really does make a difference on this thing. So if you have an older laptop like this, a solid state drive can make a difference in performance. So, I mean, the specs in this thing for its time, at least when I upgraded to, were definitely not too bad. Again, the RAM, 4 gigabytes, is all this will take. I think that's the maximum it'll take. The 2.5 gigahertz Core 2 Duo T9300 is probably right up there near the maximum this one will support. I have to say, it's done really well. I put Windows 10 on it sometime back when. Now this is actually a clean installation. I do still need to install the touchpad driver. I noticed that's not installed. Like the, for example, if I pull up File Explorer, well, there's nothing here because it's practically a new machine. Scrolling doesn't work. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this back in here in a second. Let's see if it estimated the time. Yeah, 4 hours it says, which is not too bad for a battery this age. Now the time would go down once you start to like browse the web and do anything that requires CPU power, because that estimate does change around quite a bit with usage. So what's amazing about this laptop, again, as I mentioned, the performance for a laptop this age, but also the build quality. This was probably one of the last, 2008, 2009, it was right about that time that the build quality of not just Dell laptops, but laptops in general started to go downhill. They started getting cheaper. Like, for example, this compact is a 2010 model, and it's had its fair share of problems. I've had to work on it several times. This used to be a client's machine, actually a friend of mine, and it quit quite some time ago. I've replaced the motherboard in it once already, and the issue it's having now is it's really bizarre, and I'm going to have to do a separate video on that. But it's just like, for example, I'll show you this screen. I've had to replace the screen on this one before too. Bear with me. Pull that back open. So on these newer laptops, the lid is completely the lid is structured around the LCD display. Like, for example, you can see what I'd actually had popped this off before, and it's just not a really good design. If you look at that one there, you'll see how there's 6 screws holding the front of the lid assembly together against the display. This laptop has a good bit of reinforcement around its LCD display. Now, again, the reason why this one got damaged was because it got ran over by a vehicle. But the fact that this thing still works and didn't get any more damage than what it did, it's just crazy. So the like, for example, the keyboard on this thing, they just don't make keyboards like that anymore on laptops, it seems. Newer laptops had those little chiclet style keys. Like, for example, I'll grab this one again, open it back up, and again, this is just 2 years later. Yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of this keyboard. You can definitely see there's some wear on it already. This is kind of like the keyboard that's on my Pavilion Sleekbook 15 back there, which is my current laptop. However, due to COVID-19, I've been working from home for the past month, so I haven't hardly used it. So yeah, the only time I really use this thing is if I'm actually on the go, and thanks to COVID-19, we're pretty much all staying at home, so laptop hasn't really been needed, at least for me anyway. But I mean, just the overall build quality of this thing, and also the amount of ports it offers. I mean, we have 2 USBs on this side, 2 USBs on that side, as well as VGA, Ethernet, modem, which, yeah, they still had modems back then, HDMI, Firewire, there's your hard drive or SSD there, 2 headphone jacks, not this one, microphone jack, SD card reader, memory stick reader. I think that's a PCMCIA slot. Now, her laptops hardly ever have these anymore, and I've never had to use this thing. Older laptops that had these, you could like a lot of times, the older laptops, you would use these like slots to add in things like Wi-Fi cards, among other things. Now, I'm not exactly certain. I think that's what that is. Let me get some lighter to see if there's a connector. Now, some of these laptops from back then were offered with, like, for example, media center enhancements, including a little remote control. Okay, now that actually is a card slot, because you can see the connector in there. But some of these things from back in the day, they actually had a separate card slot, or excuse me, a separate slot for like the remote control. Now it's funny, I'm looking at this thing, the little Wi-Fi indicators are non-functional, and there's a reason behind that, which I'll cover here in just a second. Yeah, I forgot to mention, another thing I did to this thing sometime back when was I swapped out the Wi-Fi card for a wireless N 300 card. It originally had just your basic wireless G, 54 megabits per second, and that is terribly old technology these days, especially with our internet being faster than that. Let's pop this back in there. I mean, this thing is just built like a tank. I wish laptops were still built to this kind of ruggedness and durability, but a lot of them are not, unfortunately. Now, this is the lid on the thing, and you can see the lid has seen its better days. Back in 2008, Dell was offering these things with different color displays, and on some models like this green, they would put this rubber coating on the outside of the plastic. And back in 2008, I'm sure this looked pretty decent. It even did back in 2011 when I got this thing. But as years have passed, the rubber coating has gotten old. It's gotten kind of like sticky, and it looks awful now, and it's just rubbing off. And I may attempt in a later video to just completely sand this stuff off of here. But there's that. And I'm also going to actually focus on the upgradability of this thing here in this video. Another thing I did swap out was the DVD drive. Popped in a DVD burner, which hardly ever use that anymore, but see, there it is. Plug this back in because I'm going to do a Wi-Fi performance test here in a moment. Let's go ahead and pull up the internet, shall we? Let's go and pull up Chrome. And we'll go to YouTube. Why not? Now, one thing about these old laptops is they do tend to struggle with video playback. This one can do 1080p. Although sometimes it does tend to stutter a little bit with 1080p. And definitely, that's why I say I gotta install the touchpad driver for this thing, because it still has the basic Windows touchpad driver, which is very, very crappy in my opinion. Let's see this for an example, a recent video. and it's running in 480p right now. It's going to up that to 1080. Let's see, for example, pull up Task Manager. You can see this is running the CPU pretty hard, actually, or it was. So this thing has the I think it's the Intel 965 graphics, which are not that great, especially with today's standard. Like, for example, let me go ahead and get out of this. Like, for example, we go to Google Maps. So we're in Google Maps now, and you can see that it says 3D Earth View is not available. That's because the graphics on this laptop does not support it. Now, I have seen this come up for other random issues, but I know for a fact this laptop's graphics does not support the 3D Earth View, because the graphics are just too old. But for basic browsing and watching videos and stuff, this thing still does pretty well, I think. And again, just for basic overall use. So, if you ever happen to come across a laptop like this one from its time period, especially like, for example, this 1525 Inspiron, I'd say get it. If you know somebody who's just needing a basic laptop, this would make a perfect laptop. Just throw 4 gigs of RAM in, put in a SSD, and if you can, swap out the CPU, which is very easy to do on this laptop. I'll cover that in this video as well. So let's go and do a quick speed test and show the performance of the Wi-Fi on this thing. So again, as I mentioned, I did swap out the Wi-Fi card in this thing. For I think it's an wireless N300 8th rows card. Let's see what we get this time. Speedtest.net, the site in general, does take a bit to load on this thing for some reason. I've never been a real big fan of Speedtest after their latest upgrades to their site. And we're pulling down to almost 200 megs per second on the Wi-Fi. Now I know something interesting here. It seems like the Wi-Fi performance is better when it's when it's dark outside at night. Because I did a test like this during the day, and I was only getting like 120 megs per second down. Same spot, same router, same everything. Kind of interesting. So yeah, the Wi-Fi performance on this thing is definitely not bad. I think it does have a decent Wi-Fi antenna built into it. Now, we're not too far away from the wireless router, but still, definitely not too bad. So, yeah, just for the heck of it, I decided to resurrect this thing. It's been sitting in my pile of laptops for close to a year or 2 years now. Hadn't really used it much since I got that Sleepbook 15. I did feature this one in a video not too long ago. Or maybe it was a year or so ago, where I did test out a solid state drive or something. I did something with this thing since I had it laying around, and I decided, what the heck? I'll just go and put it back together, and put a solid state drive in it, and load Windows onto it. So let's go and do a restart right quick. Definitely not too bad. One thing I should mention though is this thing has always had a pretty aggressive fan curve. This thing ramps the fan up a lot quicker than many other laptops I've worked with. Now, something interesting I've noticed about the Wi-Fi on this thing is, I don't know if it's there. It goes. I did a video like this already, but I'm actually redoing this video. But last time I did this video, the 5G Wi-Fi networks did not show up. Only the 2.4G, and that was the case until I rebooted the machine. I don't know if it's a driver issue or what, but it's kind of interesting. So, I guess to wrap up this video, I'm going to show you what I was going to mention earlier. Is I mentioned about upgrading the CPU in this thing. Normally, when you want to upgrade a processor on a laptop, provided the CPU is socketed and not soldered to the board, typically you would have to do a full teardown of the laptop. And oftentimes that would include removing the motherboard and everything. But on this one, it's a different story. Because on this laptop, your Wi-Fi card, as well as your memory and your CPU, all under this big door, all under this big panel. So you just take your screwdriver. Well, first I'll take the battery out. Let me show you the battery. Again, doing this one-handed. So there's a battery I installed in it back in early 2012 when I started using this thing regularly. It's a 9-cell, got 9 18650s in it, and you can actually peel back the label on this thing and see the cells. And they're just your typical generic cells that these off-brand replacement batteries have in them. I believe these are the cells that are in this pack, and these are actually 1900 milliamp hour cells. And it's interesting is this thing claims it's a 6600 milliamp hour pack. That means you would have to have 2200 milliamp hour cells in it to get this number, which if it has 1900 milliamp hour cells, you'll get considerably less. So you would only get 5700 milliamp hours in that case. Yeah, definitely not the 6600, but I only paid like $20 for its battery, so not bad. I'll go ahead and take those screws out and I'll show you what's in here. Now, one of the interesting things about this particular model of laptop is the amount of expansion that it offers. Now, it only has 2 SODIMM slots, like practically most, if not all, laptops I've dealt with. Now, there's some laptops, cheap mini laptops, that only have 1 SODIMM slot. For example, like with netbooks. But this one, I mean, you'll see once I get this cover off of here. Okay, so the door's off. And under this door you have access to the CPU core, as well as the CPU, the memory, and the Wi-Fi card. Now the CMOS battery is up inside here, so you don't have particularly easy access to that, but all the main components that you would probably want to get access to for upgrades, you have access to in this thing. And most laptops, a good majority of laptops out there just don't give you that amount of access. So there's the Wi-Fi card, but look here. We have 2 more PCI Express slots here. One is for WWAN, which I think is for like cellular data, if I'm not mistaken. And we got this separate one, I think is for a Bluetooth card. Yep, Bluetooth. So this thing gives you all this expandability. And I'm wondering if any of these slots could be universal. For example, I've been considering going out and purchasing a Broadcom Crystal HD decoder card, which would assist the graphics on this thing with decoding HD video. I've seen some videos on YouTube of people trying these in like netbooks and stuff, and I thought about trying that with this thing as well as a netbook. That may be a future video, but I'd be curious to see if these would work with whatever you stuck in them. Because this one here is marked for WN, and this one over here is marked for Bluetooth. So, I mean, if I want to, I could go out and purchase a Bluetooth card and give this thing Bluetooth functionality. So, this thing is extremely expandable, and that's why I think when I snagged this thing back in late 2011, I felt like in a way I kind of hit a gold mine. Now, to be honest, when the customer stopped by to pick up her desktop and she showed me this thing, I tried my best to talk her out of getting rid of it. I told her, I said, I can actually install Windows. I could reinstall Windows. I could put some more memory in it. I can make this thing run a lot faster than the desktop that you're purchasing. She's like, no, I just want the desktop. I want to get rid of this thing. I'm like, okay. So, can't say I didn't try. So yeah, this thing. That's one of the reasons why I practically refuse to get rid of it. Is because I mean, even though spec wise it's way behind, but I've had this thing for so many years. It's just one of those different kinds of laptops, I guess I could say. It's just one of those models that you could really expand and upgrade. And for its time, that was pretty significant. So there you have it. The old Inspiron 1525 has been resurrected yet again. If this ain't the first time I've done it. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Well everybody, that's it for this video, but don't forget there's a lot more interesting stuff on the channel to check out. Also, if this is your first time visiting this channel, feel free to subscribe to keep your channel, and also don't forget to tick the bell so that way you'll get notified of new video posts. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. But if you really didn't like it, there is the alternative option available as well. Also, feel free to check out my second channel, CubeComp MTDX. There you'll find videos about bicycling, weather, elevator tours, and all sorts of other neat, interesting stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to come back, and thank you for your support.